All right, welcome back to the English Prep Podcast, everyone. Today we're diving into something that's so important for improving your English, especially if you're thinking about taking exams like the TOEFL, or really just want to level up your writing in general. I'm talking about writing really good, high-scoring essays.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking about how planning and structure, how you put your essay together, it can really make a difference, not just in your score, but also in your confidence as a writer.
Exactly, because when you know how to organize your thoughts and present them well, it makes the whole process less stressful, right?
Totally, yeah. So today, what we really want to do is break down those essential steps for you. Specifically for you as intermediate English learners, how can you organize your thoughts? How can you structure your essay to make a strong argument? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, and so let's jump right into it. I mean, one of the things we hear a lot is about planning.
Right.
People say, oh, I don't have time to plan, or I'll just figure it out as I go. But is that really the best approach?
Well, it's tempting to jump right in, for sure. But I think planning, even if it's just a few minutes, can actually save you a lot of time in the long run. It helps you think clearly. And it prevents you from kind of going off on those tangents, right? Like those things that are interesting but don't really belong in the essay.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like you get lost in the woods, right, if you don't have a map.
Exactly. You need that roadmap. And a good plan, it's like your roadmap for your essay. It keeps you focused on that main topic, the main point you want to make, and it helps you organize your thoughts in a logical way.
Right, so that when somebody's reading your essay, whether it's a teacher or an examiner, they can follow your train of thought. They're not getting confused, right? They see how one idea connects to the next.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference because well-structured essay, it's just more persuasive. It's more convincing.
So, okay, planning is important. But what are some practical ways to plan? Like, where do you even begin?
Well, I like to start with something called pre-writing. It's basically just getting all of your ideas out of your head and onto paper before you start actually writing the essay.
So it's like brainstorming.
Exactly. And there are a few ways to do it. Like you mentioned brainstorming, you can just jot down words, phrases, anything that comes to mind when you think about the topic.
Yeah.
And don't worry about making it perfect at this stage. It's really just about getting those ideas flowing.
Okay, so just get it all out there.
Yep. Another thing you can try is free writing. Set a timer for like 5 or 10 minutes and just write continuously about the topic. Don't stop to edit. Just keep writing.
And I bet you sometimes find like hidden gems in there, right?
Yeah.
Things you didn't even realize you were thinking.
Oh, absolutely. That's the beauty of free writing. You kind of surprise yourself. And once you have some ideas down, you can start organizing them into an outline.
Okay, so the outline is where we start to give our essay that structure, that shape.
Right. The outline is like the skeleton of your essay. It shows you the main points you want to make and the order in which you want to make them.
So when we think about that typical essay structure, what are the main parts we need to include in our outline?
Well, you want to start with your introduction. That's where you hook the reader and introduce your main idea, which is also known as your thesis statement.
Right, the thesis statement is like that one sentence that summarizes the whole point of your essay.
Exactly. And then you've got your body paragraphs. That's where you develop your argument by providing evidence, examples, all those things that support your thesis.
And how many body paragraphs should we aim for?
Well, usually at least 3, but it can depend on the essay topic and the length requirements.
Okay, and each paragraph should focus on one main idea, right?
Right. Each paragraph has its own topic sentence, which tells the reader what that paragraph is going to be about.
Okay, so we've got the introduction with the thesis statement, we've got our body paragraphs with their topic sentences, and then, of course, we need to wrap it all up.
Yeah, the conclusion. And this is where you restate your thesis, summarize your main points, and maybe leave the reader with something to think about.
Okay, so we've got the structure down, but I think it's important to talk about the actual writing, too. Like, what about grammar and style? What are some things we should keep in mind?
Well, first of all, remember that clarity is key. You want your ideas to be easy to understand. So use clear and concise language. Don't try to use big words just to impress the reader. Simple language can be really powerful.
And I think sometimes, especially when we're learning a new language, we can get caught up in trying to sound too formal, right? But it's okay to use simpler words as long as they're accurate and convey your meaning clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to think about is active voice versus passive voice. Active voice is usually more direct and engaging. For example, instead of saying, the ball was thrown by the boy, you could say, the boy threw the ball. See how that's more direct?
Oh, yeah. And I guess it just makes the writing sound more lively, too.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to vary your sentence length. Mix it up a little bit. You can have some short sentences for impact and then some longer sentences to provide more detail.
Okay, so clarity, active voice, varying sentence length. Those are great tips.
Yeah.
But how do we actually get better at all of this?
Well, like with anything, practice is key. The more you write, the better you'll become. And there are a few things you can do to make that practice more effective.
Like what?
Try timed writing. Set yourself a time limit and write an essay on a practice topic. This will help you get used to writing under pressure, which is important for exams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can also ask a friend or a teacher to read your essays and give you feedback. It's always helpful to get a fresh perspective.
And sometimes we might not even see our own mistakes until somebody else points them out, right?
Exactly. And when you're reading other people's essays, pay attention to how they structure their arguments, how they use language, those kinds of things. You can learn a lot from just reading.
So we've covered a lot today, from planning to structure to grammar and style. And I know we have a lot of intermediate English learners listening, so is there any specific advice you'd give them?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
And don't try to learn too many new words at once. Focus on using the words you know well and gradually expand your vocabulary.
That's good advice. It's about quality over quantity, right?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are lots of resources available, like online dictionaries, grammar websites, even apps that can help you improve your writing.
Okay, so what about writer's block? I think everyone experiences that sometimes. What do you do when you just can't seem to get started?
Yeah, writer's block is real. But there are a few things you can try. Sometimes just taking a break and coming back to it later can help. Or try free writing about anything just to get those creative juices flowing.
And I guess it's also important to break down the task into smaller steps, right?
Oh, definitely. Don't try to do everything at once. Focus on one step at a time. Like, first brainstorm your ideas, then create your outline, then write your introduction, and so on.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into essay writing, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, remember that planning and structure are essential for writing effective essays. Spend some time brainstorming, create a clear outline, and make sure your ideas flow logically from one to the next.
And practice, practice, practice.
Exactly. The more you write, the better you'll become. And don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you. There's no one right way to write an essay.
And if you're an intermediate English learner, don't get discouraged. Focus on clarity and accuracy, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right. And remember, writing is a skill that takes time and effort to develop. But with practice and persistence, you can become a confident and successful essay writer.
Great advice. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us, and happy writing, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.
See ya.